the mic. Oh, let's try that. What do you think?
Yeah.
There, that fixed it.
Let's see.
Are we live? Is it working?
I think it is. Let me just reload over here. I can see your levels.
Yes.
I can see your levels now.
I hear you.
There we
We're
go.
done. Wow, the longest. Okay, I'm gonna close this.
At least it was only 15 minutes this time. Oh my god.
Sure.
Season 3 has been hell. Okay. Well, what do you say we just get things going right away?
Yeah.
All right.
Live from KOYR Studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota, this is Arcade Radio. Intruder alert, intruder alert.
Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of the Arcade Radio Podcast. I hope you all can hear us. Today is Thursday, November 29th, 2018. The time is now approximately 7:36 p.m. Central. Thanks for joining us in the Arcadosphere. This is your host, Adam Steven Van Zandt. I am joined by my co-host, Mark, time running with the Night Shields. And tonight, the guest host of Arcade Radio is Tesla enthusiast, amateur photographer, technologist, programmer, and former Atari employee who created games like Atari Baseball, BattleZone, and S.T.U.N. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Ed Rotberg. Welcome aboard.
Hi, all.
Well, now we have, the stream hopefully hanging up here. I'm seeing the Wheel of Death, but
Yeah.
it's good to see you guys. So, normally what we do here, Ed, is we talk a little bit about what we've been working on.
Sure thing.
And that usually entails us talking about something in the hobby. So, whatever you have going, that'd be great. Mark, why don't you kick us off? Give us a little example.
Okay. Well, let me think. I was in Chicago Monday of Thanksgiving week, and I shot some video for John from John's Arcade, and we were with also with Greg from Arcade Impossible, and we hit a couple locations up. It's a pretty fun video, and it's coming out soon, so just stay tuned for that. And while I was in Chicago, I decided to pull the trigger and buy a Joust 2 arcade game.
Sweet.
I got a pretty good deal.
Joust 2 is pretty rare.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. My wife likes it because you get to turn into a Pegasus.
Right.
So that's kind of nice.
Careful,
I guess
warrior.
That's how they. What's that?
Careful, warrior.
Yeah. So I've been having fun trying to figure out how to get it shipped back here. I had somebody that was going to drive up there, and then he just couldn't make it because of the snow. I'm trying not to use words that are bad. I'm trying to... let me use words that are similar, like witch out. Anyway, yeah. So I'm dealing with that, and then yesterday, somebody on Facebook posted an ad for some game machines. And game machines is I should probably not be revealing this, but that's like the keywords I use for people who don't know the word arcade.
Oh, I see.
It was 5 full-size arcade games for, and they said make an offer. I said, how about $500 for all 5? And they said, okay, we'll be right there.
Wow. That's a pretty good deal.
I know. So what I got a NFL Blitz 99. monitor works. It's not booting, but that's okay. It's easy to fix. I got an NBA Jam, which works pretty much 100%. I need to get the red adjusted. I got a Mortal Kombat 3 and a Mortal Kombat 1 cabinet. Works perfectly. I got a Call of the Wild Buck Hunter. It's not, yeah, I know it's not shooting exactly, but I think that the display is dirty and the brightness needs to be turned up. And then finally, I got a Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition in a Stargate cabinet that somebody cut the sides to make it look like a joust or a Robotron. It's kind of weird. That has a 25-inch monitor stuck in it somehow.
Wow.
That monitor's not running, but that's pretty cool. I think I'm gonna J-Rock that one. So I have a lot of projects. I did get the BattleZone working that's behind me. I had to marry some boards together to get it going. It turned out that my board was pretty good, but the math board was not, and I finally found one that worked.
Interesting.
And I really enjoyed it. The only thing that really bothers me cosmetically about this cabinet is somebody with some red splatter paint sprayed it everywhere, and I don't know if that was like the thing in like 1986 or I don't know what was going on.
No, it's somebody messing with the cabinet.
Yes. So that's pretty much it. But I love me my BattleZone. It is good times.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I've been having some troubles and woes with my multi-asteroids kit, but that's okay. I'll figure it out. It's just a matter of time. I had to order a couple of chips, and I have to burn some chips, so I dug out the old chip burner. Got her going on Windows 10. And, Journey's back home with a fresh coat of paint. It's nice and blue back from the auto shop, so that's going to be kind of cool when it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And now I need to find someplace warm to finish it up. And then I might be selling some games. I'm thinking about selling my Pac-Man that's signed by Billy Mitchell.
Aw.
And my crazy...
Oh, hey, wait, that was my Pac-Man.
I know.
Are you gonna sell it? Are you gonna sell it to me for the same amount I pay?
Well, no, because I did a bunch of work on it. But you're welcome to buy it back with it. Yeah, I'll sell it to you.
Once I work my shipping situation out, I'll see what we can do.
And then I have a couple of Atari basketballs I'm thinking about moving, and Crazy Climber cocktail and some other stuff. I just have tons of stuff, and I need to get rid of it. So, Ed, what have you been working on?
Yeah. So as far as my hobby goes, I have mostly been working on one thing that's kind of interrupted everything else. I'm sure Adam and Mike know about this. That I just had a knee replacement 2 weeks ago, almost exactly.
Oh.
So I'm breaking in a new knee.
So what was going on? Did the cartilage go away? What happened?
Yeah, I had the knee had already been operated on 3 times. There was pretty much no cartilage left.
Okay.
And we knew this was going to happen at some point. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's always fun getting older, I'll tell you that.
It beats the alternative.
It does. My dad used to say that it beats the alternative. And I think that's the attitude you have to have. Didn't you just do a convention recently, too?
Did I do a con?
Yeah.
I was up at the end of or the middle of October, I guess it was. I was up in Portland at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo.
Yeah.
Folks up there are wonderful.
Sweet.
It's always a great time to get back together with some of the old gang.
Yeah.
I'm going to be actually trying to put together an arcade-only panel next year.
Cool.
Which was, as I told you before, I had to give Eugene a call.
Yeah.
Or get in touch with him. Otherwise, that's what I was going to try to tap him on the shoulder for, see if he's interested getting a trip to Portland.
Yeah. Portland's kind of a cool town.
I like Portland a lot. You got to be okay with rain. But other than that, it's a very cool town. I like what they've done with it in terms of their metro system. You can get pretty much anywhere you need to go. So I'm a big fan. It's always fun to go up there.
That is, yeah. I mean, so you got a Tesla, you got a new knee, and you're still active in the community, doing interviews like this. So we appreciate that.
Oh, thanks. It's fun, especially at like I say at the expos. It's nice when you get to see some of the old gang I don't normally get to see.
Yeah.
I keep relatively well in touch with a bunch of the old gang, and in fact, I have a to do I put on up here every year in the foothills. Which largely started out just being for members of the video game business, both arcade and consumer. A golf tournament, and I'm probably going to be winding it down here for in the next few years. But it's been a lot of fun as a way to keep everybody in touch with everybody.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. So, Mark, I think that brings us to the next segment of the show. What do you think?
Oh, right.
It's the Arcade News with Adam Stevens.
St. Paul, Minnesota, via the hoodline.com, there is a new tap house opening up in my town, so I'm super excited about it. If you've ever, if you got traditional American eats and games on your mind, a recent opening is a need to know. The newcomer to West 7th, called St. Paul Tap, is located at 825 West Jefferson Avenue. That's my dog. Sorry about that.
Good boy.
It's a girl. So, and it's Christine and Lily coming home, I'm sure. So, welcome to the show. Offering 6 consoles, 8 tabletop games, 9 pinball machines, and 25 arcade games. Guests can appease their kid at heart. So the bar also features horse racing on Thursdays, bingo on Saturdays, and DJs Thursdays through Saturday. It's actually kind of a cool spin, and it's kind of new to St. Paul, so if you ever come to Minneapolis, we have plenty of places for you to play games. The next piece I think is kind of interesting. There's this old video from 1975, so if you can picture the year being 1975, pinball machines, microwaves, and Pong topped the Christmas wish list, and Sears, then a retail giant, was the place in Dallas where you could buy all 3. So this video is from a station in Dallas called WFAA, and I just wanted to play a clip of it because it's really interesting. So
retail stores like Sears and Valley View Mall are jumping for joy this Christmas season. Customers may be cautious about what they spend their hard-earned money on, and they may be looking for bargains, but many are buying the expensive stuff this year, like the electronic games that attach to TV sets, or one of 3 types of home pinball, ranging in price from $200 on sale to $700. Would people pay that much for a game? You bet. Salesmen say this stack of Pong games will be gone after 4 hours. Microwave ovens are a big hit this year, too, not to mention those electric kitchen gadgets that make that domestic work a little easier. Retail sales were bigger at Christmas time last year, but the Sears chain expects a last-minute rush in the next 2 days.
So I had to play that because we have this little Black Friday thing going on, and, well, it's nice. They were doing the same thing back then. So the year was 1975. The clip you just saw featured, Pong, and you could buy pinball machines. What do you guys think about that? You could buy a pinball machine for $200 or get it for $700. So,
considering my parents' house was like $11,000 back then, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money.
Yeah, I was up at college then, so it was a different thing.
The other news item that I had, which I thought was kind of cool, is there's a company in Australia that's bringing, it's called Euclidean, and they're preparing to bring 3D holographic tables. So think about, remember those pinball machines that were, they weren't exactly regular pinball machines. They were like a cocktail version. So think of a table like that, except for it's got a holographic top. So Time Traveler combined with that sort of cool top. I could mention that Star Trek 3 scene, but nobody's ever remembers those things anyway besides me. And then in the juke news, we have a little music news for the fans of the show that like what's in the juke. And Tears for Fears is auctioning off all their 90s recording equipment. So the band's frontman is having a huge clear out, and it includes a Linn drum machine, part of Tears for Fears' signature sound. And so that was probably used in the 80s as well. And then they have pedal boards via
90s.
I'm sorry, what?
I feel like this should be their 80s stuff. That's when they wrote good songs. And the 90s, I don't even know what they did.
Okay,
But continue.
So I might rip your throat out through the microphone because I'm a huge fan of theirs. So it's kind of like why I put this in here, but now I'm a little hurt. So
Dang.
thanks.
Well, I couldn't wait.
Thanks
to
for
this so
just
that I could
saying just thanks for making the band insignificant in their later years.
Oh no,
That's really
I
nice
just
of
think
you.
They have some old equipment that they need to get rid of.
They do a killer version of Creep. If you've not heard it, it's fantastic. And they've done a couple other covers of some modern stuff that's really cool. I just saw them at Red Rocks 2 years ago, and they were fantastic, doing new and old material. Great band. So anyway, if you want to check it out, the auction house is Gardiner Holgate, and it's UK. So it's Gardiner Holgate Houlgate. But we'll post a couple links in the chat later on, and you can check it out. So I think that brings us, probably to the next segment. Well, let me just try that again.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin quarter mile.
Back to the cave with Time Runner.
Still getting used to
Why are
this
things so
sound.
heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Hey, don't let the DeLorean Gullwing door hit you on the head. Because we're going back to November 29th, 1981, just a mere 37 years away. Wow.
Yeah.
In arcade news back on November 29th, 1981, Jump Bug, the first scrolling platformer, developed by Hoy Corland and Alfred Denshi. Wow, they did not pick easy names back then. They distributed it in North America by Rockola. There's a name that you can say. Under license from Sega. Kodak Crafty Mex BitKit.
Well,
hold
up a second. I lost you for a sec. I lost you for just a sec. Yeah. Can you repeat that?
You want me to do the whole thing?
Well, right up where you said coincidentally.
Coincidentally, Crafty Mex BitKit has now added Jump Bug to its growing list of FPGA titles. Check it out at craftymech.com. I'm going to read this other segment over here in purple. Is that okay?
Yeah, but I changed the keyword.
Change the keyword. He did?
Right. Yeah.
Well, then you read it.
All right. So in celebration of Ed being on the show and of Jump Bug being recently released on Crafty Mex BitKit, I wanted to, announce that we have a partnership with Paradise Arcade. We talk about their, products quite often, and they're on the show quite often. So Susan has given us permission that from right, and she kind of runs the show over there, from right now until tomorrow at midnight, Paradise Arcade has agreed to extend their Black Friday $200 BitKit special to listeners of the show. So that's pretty cool, because then you use the code Bump and Jump on the website at paradisearcadeshop.com. That's paradisearcadeshop.com to purchase a BitKit, and you'll receive not only a BitKit, but a Pac Jamma adapter to go with it. That allows you to seamlessly convert a Pac-Man or a Miss Pac-Man or a Pac-Man Plus to run 25 plus games in FPGA without modifying your game's hardware. And that's pretty cool, because then you don't have to ruin anything. And if you ever want to sell the game, like if you want to sell your Pac-Man that's signed by Billy Mitchell, for instance, it won't be wrecked. You could just do it. So that's a $300 value, and they're letting us offer that to you for $200. The Pac Jamma retails for about $100, and the BitKit retails at about $199 currently. So the Power Jamma adapter is like, it converts Pac harness to work with any Jamma setup, and the BitKit is, it's the BitKit we've talked about.
Wait, so let's go back to that keyword, that the promo code.
Sure.
Did you say bump and jump?
I said bump and jump. So BUMPNJUMP.
Why did we pick that one?
Well, because Susan picked it, and I asked her to do Rotberg, but she probably didn't know how to spell Rotberg. So
Most people don't.
Jump Bug.
And am I pronouncing your name right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. It's pronounced all different ways.
Well, how do you, is it, I originally thought it was Rotberg.
Yeah, that's German, would be Rotberg.
Okay.
Red Mountain.
Okay. So I'm glad I asked because, well, how do you prefer? Do you prefer Ed Rotberg? Does everybody call you Ed Rotberg? Or?
Yeah, everybody calls me Rotberg. That's what I've heard my whole life. So
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
that's what I'll answer to most readily.
That's funny. My last name's Coyer, 2 O's, and I have to correct people regularly. But I go by Stevens on the show, so I just gave away my little nom de plume. But anyway, so you were talking about that you wanted to.
1981, Time Bandits was the #1 film at the box office. British fantasy film was co-written, produced, and directed by Terry Gilliam. Stars Sean Connery, and Adam's going to play you the terrible voiceover commercial, but luckily I found one that's only 30 seconds. Go for it.
All right, here we go.
What happens when former Beatle George Harrison brings together John Cleese, Sean Connery, Shelley Duvall, Katherine Hellman, Michael Palin, 6 little people, 1 little boy, 2 living gargoyles, a giant, an ogre, Napoleon, Robin Hood, a supreme being, an incarnation of evil, 12 cowboys, 6 flying cowheads, and a device for tripping through time? Answer, Time Bandits. Rated.
I think they thought that if they had a man like with a crazy, happy, funny voice like this, that you would want to go see this movie. The movie has nothing to do with this guy.
No, it doesn't.
1 week from tonight.
You know, it's interesting. Yeah. I am a huge fan of Time Bandits.
Love it.
I don't know.
Great movie.
That's fantastic. All 3 of us love it. So, chatters, tell us, do you love Time Bandits? It'd be fun to know. Mark, go on to your next, segment.
Right. So this same day, there the best thing on TV, and I'm using that term. I really shouldn't say best. Kind of the goofiest thing. Lonnie Anderson was in a TV movie that night, playing a flapper, and the name of the movie was Sizzle.
Sizzle.
Yeah, Sizzle. I don't know if that was her nickname. I didn't go and look. Maybe she had Sizzle. But anyway, they played it on television one time and then never played it again. And they did not release it on DVD. But it's funny how they kind of throw stuff out there like, well, nobody's watching now. It's Thanksgiving. It's all over. So anyway,
but people were watching then because that's the only thing that was on.
Well, play that little ad. It's kind of cool to hear the announcer from ABC.
Okay. Here we go.
1 week from tonight, she was a small town girl on her way up in the big city until they killed her boyfriend and framed her. But she came back, beating them at their own game. And doing it with Sizzle.
She is not
Lonnie
singing.
Anderson, the girl with Sizzle.
That's the same announcer for Buck Rogers, by the way.
Buck Rogers.
Yeah. So 500 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We should look that guy up.
Yeah, you're roboting like crazy. So, what was that was the best thing on TV that you could find?
That was, but I do have a question.
Oh, you do?
What's in the juke?
Hello and welcome to What's in the Juke.
Wait for it.
Is it done? All right.
I think it is done.
This is the part of the show where we play a little bit of song and people on the chat try to guess the song and then we score points and then don't give anybody anything for winning.
Oh my God. Are we sure we want
All right.
We gotcha. So we are okay. So Ed, you know how this works. Our chatters are going to guess the clip of the song. We put together. Do we give them any hints on this, Mark? Or are we leaving that out until the end? So we don't tell them what time slice we took it from?
It's the same date, November 29th, 1981, not necessarily in any particular order or, top 40 or things that were dropped off or came on to the top 40. It's just
all right.
That.
Here we go. The first track. You think that's enough?
I do. I think really made that movie. Did you see like they rebooted it with some other guy?
No.
I'm trying not to use his name.
Other guy. They rebooted MacGyver.
I like how they think it's a Peter Cetera song.
It kind of sounds like it,
It
actually.
does sound Chicago-ish,
Oh,
yeah.
Dave from Buffalo is in with Arthur. That's a
Right.
Point.
yeah. It's the theme from Arthur. I think Dave gets that though, right? So who sang it? That's the other question.
Full point.
Well, no, it's a half point to Andy Baldwin.
Half point.
And a half point to Dave from Buffalo.
Half point.
All right, does that sound good?
Yes.
All right, so the next track, here it comes. Ed is like, can I answer?
Yeah, that's all right. That's
for
all
it.
right. That's funny just to hear the song.
Yeah, I know.
It is funny. And we have, centerfied Andy Baldwin gets the whole shebang. Can you believe that?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah, so
Full point.
for Andy Baldwin. Okay, here we go. Here's the next. Oh boy. I'm kind of bitter about this because, it's very
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, yeah, exactly. Just if you don't know, just guess Willem Dafoe. Yeah. Journey, Steve Taki is in the nice. Journey, man. And Don't Stop Believing for Andy Baldwin. So that means a half point for Andy Baldwin, right?
Half point.
And a half point for Steve
Half
Taki.
point.
Thanks for being in the show tonight. That's awesome. Okay, next track. Okay, the first three tracks. Arthur's Theme by Christopher Cross, Centerfold by Jay Giles, and Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Here comes the next one.
Classic.
It is a classic. It's fantastic.
1981. Wow, it was awesome for music.
It was. I'm actually kind of shocked. So that's the Police. That is correct. Steve Taki is in there with the Police again. Man, he's in with a half point.
Half point.
But what was the song? And let's see if anybody gets it without having to play another clip.
I see Andy Baldwin got it.
I think he did. Every little thing she does is magic. That is correct. By the Police. All right, the next track.
No, I can't get that one yet.
You got to be careful. The very first thing she says is the name of the track.
I know. So I'm going to play a little bit more. I love this song so much. Yes, Brian Frober's in the game, and so is Steve Taki. Steve Taki is killing it tonight. Check this out.
Half point.
For Steve and a half point for
Half
Mr.
point.
Brian Frober. Check it out. Steve, you're going to have to learn to type it all in one sentence. That's fantastic. So that was Sheena Easton with For Your Eyes Only. We'd play more, but we keep getting flagged. It's terrible, especially if you play Journey or Steve Perry. They shut your channel down. It's fantastic. Okay. The Relfords are not in this tonight. I don't wonder where they are. They must be
I think Dolly's in the hospital. I think she had some work done.
Oh,
So
no.
get well soon, Dolly.
Some work done. Like she had a facelift or?
No, bodily maintenance.
Yeah. My fiance just went through a full hysterectomy. Not fun. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. 6 weeks of healing time. That's good times. She's actually doing really well though. So thanks for asking. That was Quarter Flash with Harden My Heart and Andy Baldwin right behind Brian Frober, right behind S1500, who got both of them. I think
S1500 first.
I think he got all of it. Yeah, Ryan, you got it.
Full point.
So S1500, you're out there. Okay, here we go. He's on the board. Okay, the next one. This is a hard one. Yep. I love that song so much.
Yeah, the intro doesn't get a lot of play.
It's fantastic. Play a little bit more here. Oh, wait. Ryan, Hall & Oates. And
He got
Steve
the
Taki.
title.
Wow.
Half point.
Half point for both of them. All right, next song. Here we go. Yeah,
Ooh, I get sweaty listening to that.
I know. I feel like a fat guy with a aerobics outfit on. That's
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I do because I'm a fat guy. And okay, here we go. Oh my God, Ryan, you did it. You got the full point. Am I right with that?
Yep, I see that. Really close behind. New listener Jeff.
Jeff Hagedorn. Yeah, he's awesome. We could talk about him later. Okay, here we go. Here's the next one. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Greaseball's back in there. Oh my God, Greaseball, welcome to the show again. I haven't seen you in ages. I'm loving the chat tonight. We have Brian Frober, Ryan, Steve Hockey, Greaseball, Andy Baldwin, Brian Frober. I already said his name, didn't I? This is fantastic. Jeff Hagedorn.
Yeah. Greaseball's giving me tips on how not to wear sunglasses. The reason why I don't wear sunglasses is so that I can look down, but I'm still appearing to look towards the camera.
Oh, yes. That's very clever. Who got it? Prying eyes? No, it's not. It's prying eyes.
You should get some of those glasses that look like eyeballs looking straight ahead. Then you'll be upset.
So Andy
weird to keep people out.
Brian almost has the title. It's just
so Andy Baldwin gets half point.
Half point.
For the title, Private Eyes, and Ryan gets Hall & Oates for
half point.
Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Last track. That's all I'm playing. I'm not playing anymore. That's the end of the show.
I love rap.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, stop. Queen Under Pressure, and who was first? It was Steve Taki with the band and Andy Baldwin with the song. So half point for each of those guys. What do we got?
So Andy Baldwin came in first place with 3.5 points. Steve Taki in second with 2.5. Actually, Ryan was second with 3 points.
Wow.
Third place was Steve Taki with 2.5, and Dave from Buffalo and Brian Fober coming up the rear with a half point each.
Wow, I just want to say that was a really fun and close call. I think it was really good. I'm impressed.
I bet our listeners enjoyed being able to hear it.
I think they do.
Yeah.
That brings us to the next part that we really love, which is the interview. Oh, everybody, welcome to the show. One more time, Mr. Ed Rotberg. Rotberg. How are you doing, Mr. Rotberg?
Ed is fine.
Okay.
I'm doing okay.
People call my dad Mr. Rotberg.
Exactly.
I'm Ed. Okay, lay off. I'm going to kick off a question here. It's a 3-part question. So tell us a little bit about yourself, which you kind of have a little bit, but tell us again a little bit about yourself, what you are into these days, what you do, and do you still enjoy the recognition for all the games you've been working on your whole life?
Okay, a little bit about myself. I am married and living in a small old gold mining town in Northern California, somewhere between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. We love it up here, especially now that we've started to get some rain.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And what I do with my time now, since I've retired a few years ago, is I am into photography, raising a Hellion Weimaraner. I pretend to play golf at times, and I'm now very much into driving my Tesla, brand new Tesla. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm a little bit laid up trying to recover from a knee replacement here. So.
Oh well, we wish you a fast and quick recovery on that, and
it's going well.
That's good, and I love that you have a Tesla. What's your favorite part about your Tesla right now?
My favorite part about the Tesla, gosh, I mean, there's so much to like about it.
Not buying gas, right?
Oh, I'll tell you, every time I drive by a gas station, I happily wave at everybody pumping gas. But, it's not, I don't look down at gas automobiles. I mean, they are what they are because of where we've come from.
Sure, yeah.
But we've got a way forward, and as long as the wrong parties don't stick their fingers in the throw wrenches into the sockets, this is where we'll be headed. It's just the right way to go.
It's fantastic. So, interesting thing, I mentioned off the air that you're kind of off the grid, which is interesting. We were thinking about writing a Wikipedia page for you. I don't know if you want to be on Wikipedia or not, but
apparently I was at one time, and then they pulled it down. Most of the stuff goes on, and I have no idea.
The other thing is that we find a list of your games on IMDb, which is kind of weird because it has really nothing to do with movies. But it's a really cool, comprehensive list. So I'm going to just rattle off these games really quick, and then I have a question.
I might be able to tell you why, but okay.
Okay. So
why it's on IMDb, I don't know.
Great agent or something.
So
no,
you have been you had a wide career in video game development, starting in 1979 officially with Atari. So Atari Baseball in 1979, Battlezone 1980, Gridley 1983, Snake Pit 84, Hat Trick, and I know you weren't involved with programming all of these maybe, or you were a contributor, but I'm just going to kind of list them off here. Hat Trick, Goalie Ghost, Sente, Mini Golf, Name That Tune, Spiker, Blasteroids 87, Hard Drivin' 89, Stun Runner 89, Race Drivin' 1990, of course, a sequel to Hard Drivin', and then Shoes Rampart, Steel Talons, Guardians of the Hood, Killing Time, WWE Crush Hour, and Blazing Angels of all things, which is a fantastic game. Long career in coin-op video games. So of those things that I just kind of rattled off, do you have any that stick out?
Wow, I will say a lot of them I would have one small part, and then I get credit for it. So
sure.
I mean, you talk about Rampart. Don't give me credit for Rampart. I might have had something to do with some part of it somewhere.
Yeah. Like a bug fix or something, maybe.
Ralston,
sure.
I have the utmost respect for those two guys.
And I'm sorry, could you repeat their names just so everybody can hear
them? John Solwitz and Dave Ralston.
And they were the developers for that game. So.
Yeah, they did 720. They did Cyberball. They did Rampart.
Oh, Cyberball.
I'm missing some here. They did the Paperboy.
Sweet.
These guys are just fabulous.
Awesome. So Atari Baseball, really your first,
That was my first game. I had just come to work at Atari, and they, the hot game coming out of Atari right at that point was football, with the track balls and the roller top.
Yeah,
and they wanted to have a conversion kit for it for baseball, so that was a 3-month project.
3 months. That seems rather quick.
Well, back in those days, I mean, you were writing 2 or 4K of code of assembly language.
Oh.
So, it was, it was a different world back then. Totally different world.
How did you get your job at Atari?
That's actually kind of a funny story that I don't tell a lot of people. I had been, living in Chicago, working for GD0 Pharmaceuticals, and just getting generally fed up with being where I was, doing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd been talking with friends about, maybe I should just pick up and emigrate to Australia. And one of my pals brought me back, documents on how to emigrate to Australia and stuff like that. And then one of my friends just slapped Info World magazine, because I was always programming our computer at the lab I was working at the time to play different games and such. And so she slapped down this magazine in front of me, Info World. I'll never forget it. It said, "Looks like Atari's looking for programmers. Sounds like you." And so on a lark, I sent in an application, a resume, Then I got called by a gentleman at Atari, Stephen Calfee.
Okay.
And at the end of the thing, he says, yeah, well, I'm going to be flying out to your area. Would you be up for an in-person interview? And then I met him at an in-person. That was kind of funny because he had flown into, I guess, to Chicago, which is where I was living and working in that area at the time. And he had a room at a hotel there. So I showed up at his room for the interview, and I'm wearing a suit. This is what you do. You're a programmer back then. And, he opens the door and he's wearing blue jeans and a golf shirt and something like that. And the first thing I do is, I think what got me the job is I take one look at him and say, thank God. And I rip off my suit jacket and my tie. And,
Nice.
and he started laughing at that point. He said, yeah, you may have a future here.
Yeah.
Oh, so, I know you talk about Atari Baseball being your first game that you got paid for, right? So,
right.
Did you develop, games before you were hired by Atari?
Yeah, I mean, they not so much. I mean, I would do things like the first one I did was when I was in college. I did a basic program playing blackjack that couldn't be beat, and then it would advance to other kinds of games that you'd hear about and see about. And for my senior project in computer graphics, I did a lunar lander project.
Oh, cool.
Lunar lander program. And that was there's a whole long story about that too, and who the teacher for that class was, a fairly famous person in computer graphics, but that's kind of an aside to the whole story.
Sure.
So yeah, I would program games, and like I said, I would be programming the Xerox Sigma 7 to play Mastermind or some other current hot game that would come out, just kind of a fun thing for me to do for myself.
And those were things that you were, courses that you were taking in college, and you just.
Yeah, or just spare time when I would get
Sure.
time on the computers in college. If I could do my work fast enough, I'd have enough hours left over to run on the mainframes and stuff like that. So, and then once you get in with the right group of people, you can grab time on different machines as long as you're facile with them. So
Yeah,
that was that whole thing.
Well, I got a question now. You mentioned computers at college. Which computers did you have in college?
What do you mean? Did I have?
Well, which ones did you have access to? Right.
Well, we had access to PDP 8, PDP 9, and then we had a IBM 360 mainframe at the campus for the mainframe work I was doing.
That's awesome.
So those are the primary ones. There were a few off things here and there that people would ask me to look at, but that's about it.
That's kind of cool. I mean, the stuff that you had to work with is pretty primitive, so I'm sure
Yeah, I doubt many of your viewers out there actually worked with true core memory. And that goes back ways.
That's fantastic. You guys should look those up on the internet. They fill rooms, these computers, so.
The memory would fill rooms.
And the discs, they were huge.
They were like washing machines.
Right, yeah, like a tabletop platform, or so that's pretty cool. So
or then trying to actually read magnetic tape by putting on this special liquid. One brand was called Magnacy, and it would the magnets would lie up to the impressions on the tape, so you could physically read a bad tape.
Oh,
that
interesting.
got mangled somehow. So that was a cool thing. Primitive technology.
That's fantastic, though. I mean, in a way, it was kind of fun, though, because everything was a little simpler. So maybe fixing things was, a challenge, but still a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, Mark, you had a question?
Did. Can you tell us some of the people that you worked with alongside at Atari?
Yeah.
That you sort of have fond memories of?
I'll tell you, my stints at Atari were working with the most creative, most talented, most inspiring people I had worked with throughout, and I worked with a lot of wonderful people throughout my career, but that group was really special. People like Ed Logg and Dave Toyer, and as I already mentioned, John Solwitz and Dave Ralston. These were heavy hitters as far as game programming, game design. But and there were a whole lot of other wonderful people who I worked with over the years. Owen Rubin and certainly a name a lot of people should be familiar with, and Mike Alba. I mean, where do I start? Where do I stop?
Right.
Did you
really the question?
You kind of kept you kept a lot of these people close though, even after Atari. And
yes,
you had some and I say these people. You kept a lot of your friends close, and you guys had some business ventures together too, right? And recently.
Yeah, we've been some of us have been in and out of business with each other. Rich Adam, my oldest friend at Atari, and I were partners for years and years, and we went through a number of companies together. He actually moved up to the foothills here when I did, and we started consulting from here. But the most recent project we did was trying to put back a bunch of the old time Atari folk, and I actually had a game that was ready for production when the whole thing fell apart.
Oh no!
It kind of crushes me that I've got the only working copy I know about, and the only reason I have that is because it's on an Android tablet. I refuse to update the OS on it. So
I hear you there. So, and you don't want? Can you share with us what that game was?
The name is Draconis Rex, and it was a kind of a turn-based game strategy, flying, fighting, just a different set of rules. It bore resemblances to games where you build your character, but it also an RPG kind of thing, but not really. But you would build up your dragons, but there was strategy and different formations, and it borrowed some things from an old book game called Ace of Aces. I don't know if any of you remember that.
I don't remember that.
But it was a latency proof game, and you could play with someone across the room or someone across the world. It was really kind of cool in that regard. And it was all fleshed out and working, and it was in beta test when the company kind of just crumbled.
Oh, that's too bad. And that was something leisure or
Innovative Leisure.
Innovative Leisure. That's right. That's cool.
And that came from the original Atari logo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Mark, did you have something else you were going to ask? Because I was going to say something, but I thought you had something to tell.
Well, I don't know if these questions all fit together, but what were some of the games your colleagues made that you loved that you couldn't get enough of?
Well, Asteroids. You can start there. Missile Command and Tempest were two huge games, and then it goes to where you what you call colleagues. I mean, although I didn't work with Eugene Jarvis, clearly Defenders,
sure,
and Robotron, I mean, are two of the Paramount games of all times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great things about working at Atari is they would bring in our competitors' games.
Really?
And, you'd really get hooked on some of them.
I kind of vaguely,
they encourage that.
I kind of vaguely remember a story of somebody at Atari being in charge and like telling somebody to go play Defender, and whatever their score was, that would be their salary for the next year.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know that story, but there are a lot of strange stories about computer games and using them for different things, different kinds of betting and stuff. Yeah.
You named Missile Command, Asteroids, and Tempest. Were those all Ed Log?
No. In fact, Missile Command and Tempest were Dave Toyer.
Oh yeah, Dave. His name is Toyer. Yeah. I was pronounced it Toyer. So Toyer. Okay.
Yeah, David Toyer.
Maybe you're related.
Well, and the interesting thing about okay, so this is something I wanted to ask you about, because I think Ed Log, yourself, and Dave were all sort of in the same camp, and I don't know if you were, I don't know if it's just the time period or what, but you're kind of, and I may be going out on a limb here, but Missile Command, the story goes that some executive was on a plane, read a magazine, and it had like Star Wars on the cover, and he's like, I want to make a game about nuclear war. And so he says, hey, Dave, I want you to make this game. And he says, no. And he says, I really want you to make this game. He says, okay, fine, I'll make it, but you can't win. And I think that's Missile Command, fine. That teaches people nuclear war is not a winning game, right? So I think that's good. Also, his nightmares about Tempest and all that's kind of cool. But yourself, and we'll probably get into the games a little bit later here. you were affected by. But and Ed, were you all sort of against war games? That's my question.
No, not
Okay.
at all.
All right.
Things that were clearly game. See, back then, it wasn't a matter of this is real life. I mean, you look
Sure.
at the first like tank game.
Yeah.
That's not real life. It's
Right.
a game.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
used
Right.
to play cowboys and Indians and soldiers, and
Yeah.
it was a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's doing games about war and combat and things like that. I didn't have a problem with. Doing games that showed graphic violence is a different thing.
Sure.
And we didn't have to deal with that. We couldn't show graphic violence.
Yeah.
So, eventually that became an issue. And
Right.
eventually that became a bit of an issue for me.
Like Chiller, down the line.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, cool. So, you guys had to come up with all these games. You have all these colleagues that are making games. You're making all these games, right? You have this, this long list of games that you've been involved with. And there's these notorious stories about Atari's brainstorming sessions.
Yes.
I don't know how notorious they are.
Okay, so I know, and I don't want you to sugarcoat it because our audience is used to us, not sugarcoating much. So, but I know from my first introduction to you, Ed, was when I was watching my PlayStation 1 of all things. You did a video on there. Do you remember this?
I think they did it. Yeah, they did a classic arcades pack, and I guess they had interviewed a few of us.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I thought, what is this doing on here? And I was fascinated. And you guys were all talking about your games. It was really great. But I think that was the first time I heard about Atari's brainstorming sessions and how they gave you a lot of leeway. But can you describe what those were like? I mean.
The actual sessions or what came out of them?
A little bit of both.
All right. The actual sessions were wonderful. They would before that we would hold this off-site brainstorming session. They would, and this was the best part of the whole thing. They would basically open it up to our whole, division, the coin-op division,
sure,
and say, please submit any game ideas. If you need art help, contact these artists, whatever. We're taking game submissions for like the next week or month. I forget what the time period was. And people would submit a bunch of game ideas. And then they would pick a bunch of people to go to the game storming sessions, somewhat based on their submissions, sometimes based upon their seniority. I mean, all the management would always go, their successes and things like that. And if you were chosen to go, you would always choose to take some of the games that were and champion some of the games that were submitted by other people in the company. It was, your responsibility to go through those. And so you'd get up and you'd present the game. And at the sessions, there was the one thing you couldn't do was make fun of someone's idea. As long as you weren't making fun of their idea, you could make fun of the individual. You could do, and there was all kinds of crazy stuff that went on. But
wait. What kind of crazy stuff?
Well, I mean, just a bunch of creative people in a room. I mean, getting carried away with ideas. I can't recall specifics.
Okay.
Just let your imagination run. You're there to try to create fun, and you can't do that if you're serious.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. So what was it? Okay, so
that's what the brainstorming sessions were like. And then what came out of that was basically this binder of approved game ideas. And the game ideas would be approved by, a group going through everything that was presented and then selecting the, top 10, top 15. I forget how many they picked out. But the idea was for enough to hold us through production for a year. And that would not preclude people from coming up with their own idea and wanting to implement it. And this brainstorming session thing really did not live throughout the life of Atari Coin-Op.
Sure.
It was only for a period of years.
Okay.
But, that's how it worked.
Somebody is asking in the chat about Atari hot tubs. What is it? Was that a thing?
There was a thing. Yes, there was a hot tub at Atari when I joined, but I guess it was quickly removed thereafter, not because of me. I never spent any time in the Atari hot tub. although there are all kinds of Atari hot tub stories.
Oh yeah.
So without knowing which story the individual is interested in, I don't know whether I know it or can go into it. So
I
let's leave it at that.
I love this guy. Ed, you are awesome. You're so political. And I think it's great. You must know stuff. Okay, so let me ask you really at point.
What?
I got to ask you point blank. What was it like working for Bushnell? Did you ever have to interface with him personally, or did you report to somebody who reported to Bushnell?
Well, let me just
Is it Bushnell?
state the situation here. Bushnell was going out of Atari, leaving Atari when I first got there
In 79.
in '79.
Okay.
He was on his way out, but we got to know each other, and then he bought a company that I founded with 3 other guys from Atari called Vidya, and I did work with him for 5 years.
Oh, fantastic.
So yes, I do know Nolan. I just want to put the context in. Nolan is this incredible ball of innovative energy.
Sure.
It never stops.
Cool.
And I'm not, and the guy is an idea machine.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to remember that, like, he's also mortal, and not every idea that comes out of Nolan's idea is the idea that comes out of his brain is brilliant.
Sure.
Although he may believe so.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Well, it's interesting.
But yeah, I love Nolan. You just have,
I would love to have him on our show at some point, but I remember a few years back he was trying to bring a game called Ping to market. And I think
sounds like Nolan.
Yeah, and it was the play on Pong.
Exactly.
But it had some different game elements, and I think that he was really correct in the article I read. He was talking about how the thing that was missing in the arcade industry at the time, this is probably 10 years ago, is that people were not, socializing. And for him, I think a big part of, gaming is people getting together and socializing. And so he wanted to invent this new game called Ping, which was a play on Pong, and would bring 4 players into the mix and have some interesting changes to the game. So I could kind of see where he was coming from there. He's had an interesting career. So I just had to ask you about that.
Yeah, he has.
Because, he became like the chairman for Atari, whatever, 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0 or whatever it is now. It's not really the Atari it was, but
no, it's not.
But the brand is there, and they wanted him as part of that face. So, but I appreciate you telling us what it was like. Because but not just Bushnell. You yourself and all these guys were so innovative at the time with all these different games. But
it was fresh ground. I mean,
yeah.
This was like someone suddenly inventing Photoshop and throwing it in front of you, and look what people are doing with Photoshop. So it's just, you can look back at the first stuff that was done out of Photoshop and go, oh wow, and that's kind of where we were. And it's interesting to me that there are people that still appreciate all that, and I'm somewhat confused by it, because I'll be honest with you, what we did was very cool. What's being done now, and it's I cannot tell you the difference of night and day.
Sure.
With just the size of the projects, there's a number of people involved in doing a game back then and doing a game nowadays.
Well, a game now is like a movie, right? You have.
Yeah, well, certainly for the consoles, and they're just, the thing is, they're fabulous.
Yeah,
they're wonderful.
They are,
and that is a different art form than what we were doing. What we were doing is more akin to what's going on in a lot of the mobile platforms these days.
Sure.
And so that's why I think a lot of us, gravitated in that direction.
You're given a set of restrictions and tools that you need to build upon. And with games like, say, I don't know, Uncharted for PlayStation 4, there's a casting director.
Yeah.
There's several creative teams. There's several different teams that work on different mechanics for the game.
Right.
And for
the physics.
For an iPad or an Android game, you are limited. And
right.
I think that's kind of how the coin-op divisions and home game divisions were.
Yeah, and well, as you say, the platforms were limited. Now, most development takes place on cross-platform engines to leverage that, to get the greatest exposure. And so you're limited in a different way, but every game is going to be limited by your platform, your resources,
Sure.
and time and money. It's the same old vicious triangle. In some ways, with the simpler world of the arcade games, we had a very specific box. We were going to use it once, and maybe it would be reused once or twice after that.
Mhm.
But by then it was obsolete, and you were on to the next thing. In the arcade, you had more time to explore that limited, restricted space and get more out of it, because the platform was around for 5-10 years.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Go ahead.
Speaking of that expansion, I know that we're all familiar with Battlezone. We understand that Bradley Tank came out. But were there any thoughts on making more games that sort of use that same platform? Like, what else can I drive around? That kind of stuff. Or was that just sort of a one and done?
That was a one and done for a lot of reasons, not least of which, do you really want to get involved in government projects and all that entails with the government coming
Right.
in? Hold on, my dog wants to be in here. Hi, Bogey.
Oh, Bogey. That's a great name for a dog, Bogey.
It's actually Bogart, but we knew we were going to call him Bogey, and that works on three different levels for me. It works on the level of Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
It works on the level of incoming Bogey.
Oh yeah.
And then being the miserable golfer I am, it's usually so
oh, that's good.
It works for us.
That's good.
He's a great guy.
If I come out to California, I'm going to ask to take you out golfing because we'll have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at golfing, but I love it.
I'm not particularly great at it either, but I enjoy it too, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it once I get my knees back.
Yeah, fantastic. So,
what's that timeline exactly for your knees? Is it like a 6-month rehab, or?
It's not fixed. I mean, it varies with the individual, but
right.
I should be, pretty much. I mean, here I am at 2 weeks, and I'm, walking without a cane or anything like that. I'm limping around. I still have a little post-op pain, and there's a lot of things I can't do. I'm not walking up and down steep inclines, which is where I live. But that'll come probably in the next week or two, and then it'll just get stronger over time. So 6 months, I'll be back doing most anything I could before, but maybe only 80%. And then after a year, they say 90% to 100%. So
cool,
not bad.
Well, you look like you're in good shape, so I think you'll have a more of a 90 to 100%. Coming up in your life.
I hope so.
So, quick question from the audience. Andy Baldwin says he'd like to hear you talk a little bit about Sente. So, who from Atari went there? Sente hardware and similarities of Atari boards, parts, etc.
Right. So, Sente. This takes me back to the point of talking about when I formed a company with some others out of Atari. That was Roger Hector and Howard Delman, and I left Atari in 1981.
Okay.
And we formed a little company called Vidya.
Yeah.
We did Gridley back then, and we did that for Gottlieb, and we did a few other projects. We started looking into doing some VCS games, but we also did some point of sales for a company that was trying to get into like Florsheim shoes point of like a kiosk.
Weird.
Doing Laserdisc stuff, and we were just doing general technology and some games. And Nolan, who was coming kind of out of his non-compete with Atari, wanted to buy us as a jump start to getting back in the business.
Funny.
So he bought us and changed our name from Vidya to Sente.
Which is another move and go for those of you that don't know, right? So Atari was a move.
To chess.
There you go.
And so he named us Sente and made us a part of Pizza Time Theater, which we eventually were when Pizza Time went under and went into bankruptcy and was purchased by, I forget who it was.
They were purchased by Showtime.
Showtime, Pizza Time Showtime, right?
Yeah.
And then our division
Showbiz,
Showbiz, right. Yeah. Our division was purchased by Bally. and we were then a division of Bally along with Midway.
Interesting. So Bally Sente.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, yeah. Bally Sente is exactly what it
Which
was.
is that's okay. That makes total sense now. I was wondering how that happened because, okay, so there's a spin-off group. We always thought that it was a spin-off, but it really wasn't. It was you guys created a whole different company, and Nolan came in and bought it, and then Bally bought Sente. So it was Bally
well, we got
Sente.
He had some engineering at Chuck E. Cheese, of course.
Yeah.
And so we inherited some of that engineering as well.
Yeah.
So we grew at the same time we were purchased.
And then Showbiz decided that Chuck E. Cheese was a better brand, and they stuck with the name, so they changed to Chuck E. Cheese Corporation or something like that. So it was CEC.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense now. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, what was your favorite? Is there anything of your, that while you were at Sente, was there anything that stuck out to you as like a favorite?
A favorite. Well, one of my favorite games at Sente, it's kind of interesting. There were some really strange games that came out of Sente, like Snacks and Jackson is one of the kookiest games you'll ever see. And then, Hat Trick was probably my favorite game.
Hat Trick is very cool.
Love it.
And, Lee Actor did that. And the 4, you guys probably never got to play the 4-player, especially up in Minnesota. Boy, the 4-player Hat Trick was awesome.
It was late to the game, though.
It was just a little bit better than the 2-player Hat Trick.
Cool.
But the fact that you now had 2 people on each team just made a world of difference.
Yeah.
Very cool game.
That's awesome.
So those were 2 of my favorites. There were some fun, interesting stories about Sente. That was a wild time.
Any particular story you want to share?
Was there a story where, did a sack 1 ever fall on somebody? No, it's just more of interesting.
All right, well,
no, technical. Give me a technical.
I will tell you another one, and it's just kind of an in-your-face moment.
Okay.
But and only because it's like a perfect in-your-face moment.
Okay.
And I was at Sente at the time, and I'm going to be politic here and leave the individual's name out.
Okay.
But there was an individual that, started at Atari just as I was leaving Atari. And then he was starting in at Bally, I think just when it wasn't Bally, it was somewhere else. But we were at the CES in New Orleans when the Sente
what year was this?
Arcade machine was first.
Is this the sack one with the white clamshell thing on the top? Yeah. Doesn't fit in a normal door.
The big launch, right?
Yeah.
But this is like a separate thing. I'm in the hotel lobby where we're staying, and this gentleman comes down, and I get on the elevator, and he's getting off, and he goes, "You're always seeming to go in the wrong direction." He says, "Hey, Ed, you're always seeming to go in the wrong direction, and I'm going the opposite direction I'm going." Because I just started Atari, and I had just left Atari, and he just started, and that whole thing. And I looked at him, and I said, "Yes, I'm going up." And it was just an in-your-face moment. So there are plenty of other stories. I don't want to diss the individual involved, but
right. Wow.
That's hilarious.
Some smack talk.
And the metaphor of the elevator there being nice. Yeah. It's very nice.
Okay.
My.
I'm just trying out some new sounds. So let's talk Battlezone. There's some people there's people in the chat that really want to, and honestly, I'm a fan of Stun Runner. I have questions about Stun Runner because I'm mad about Stun Runner in some ways, but I would rather talk a little bit about Battlezone. So what was your involvement with the creation of this classic arcade game?
Well, Morgan Hoff was the actual project leader for that game. I was not. he chose it out of the brainstorming session.
Okay.
And he, asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. It was going to be one of the first games we did that did 3D.
Sure.
And I'd had 3D experience in college, and so I was like, yeah, this sounds like fun. I'd worked on vector systems before. The lunar lander game I did at college was a vector system. So this was like, yeah, I'm ready to sink my teeth into it. This sounds like a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So I, basically from the basic idea of doing a 3D first-person tank game, with the vector generator, that was, the game concept that came out of the brainstorming session was like about 2 paragraphs long. So the design of the game was largely mine. People would add things here and there and suggest things, and obviously, like most good stories, a game evolves in the playing, just like a story evolves in the telling. And there were refinements and things over time. Jed Margolin did the math code, and actually I went to school with Jed Margolin at Michigan as well. He did the math code at for the 3D stuff. Clever idea of his to just, and so he wrote the algorithms for it. Mike Alba wrote the 2901 bit slice processor code to implement it, and then we interfaced. Mike and I worked back and forth to interface it with the main 6502 CPU board. So that's how the game got built. Basically, it was Jed was the hardware engineer, and although Howie Delman developed the vector generator, it was then available for everybody to use. So we repurposed it for this game.
That's cool.
Gotta love it. Well, are there any elements that had been in the game that were removed, or as it evolved, is there anything in there that you were like, well we had that in there and then we got rid of it?
Well, there was a BattleZone 2 that, no, typically you don't pull stuff out at the end.
I see.
You're just trying to get it to production. There was something that we were going to, a couple of features that we were going to put in a future version of the game that never got made. One of which was that the missiles that come and shoot at you would become a lot more frequent, but you would actually be able to see them launching. And if you could get to them and blow them up during, like a 5-second launch sequence, you could get all the points and save any of the danger. So that was going to be, and then there was going to be another enemy and things like that. But that never came to be. And guys, I'm going to put a 15-minute limit on this at this point.
Yes. Okay.
That's right. That's cool. That's where we're at, where we want to stop.
Yeah, we're winding up too.
All right.
Yeah, so we're cool with that. So, what's the most common aspect of the game people ask you about regarding Battlezone?
Gosh, what's the most common thing they want?
We hear the stories of people wanting to drive to the mountains. They even hear people.
Yeah, there's that story. There's
was this a military? Did you develop it for the military?
Oh, the Army Battlezone thing. I'll give you the long and short of that.
Okay, good.
Real quick, as I mentioned, I am not a fan of war. I was not a fan of war.
Yeah.
I don't mind combat games. There's a certain thrilling stuff in combat and things like that. I think you can make it continue to seem a game and then make it be real life. And then there's the third one: use the stuff to actually train people to kill.
Oh yeah.
I support our troops. Let me say that 100%.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I just didn't want to be part of that war machine.
Yeah.
This group of generals came to Atari and asked if we could repurpose Battlezone to be a trainer for the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, sometimes called the IFV. One gentleman that I talked to at Atari said, sure, we can have it for you. When do you need it?
Oh.
And they said, well, we're having this worldwide TRADOC meeting in 3 months. Can you have it by then? And this gentleman, who will remain nameless, said, sure, we can. And then he came back and he said, hey, I promised this. You can do this, right?
Oh.
I said, I don't want anything to do with this. And we got into a long, heated argument about this, and management came in and I guess the promise had been made with these, ex-generals and stuff like that. And I said, well, I'll work on it, but I want the assurance that I will have nothing to do with any division, whichever works on military stuff, in the future. It's just not what I want to do. So I basically lost 3 months of my life. It was not a trivial thing. I would basically go home to sleep, say hello to my wife when I got home, kiss her goodbye in the morning when I left, and see her again, 18 hours later.
So
or something.
you basically
And that was about it.
redesigned Battlezone.
Repurposed. There was new hardware involved. There was, all kinds of new features that had to be added. There were all kinds of new vehicles, and collision detection had to be completely redone because they had to work realistically. It was no longer shells could just drive straight forward, like a Battlezone on this no gravity situation. Or energy shells, or whatever you want to refer to it. We had to do real physics. So there was a lot of other stuff going on.
It's interesting because Mark and I were talking a little bit before the show, and Mark was saying, and Mark, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, but there were more controls and all that sort of thing too, right?
Oh yeah, so many inputs. I mean, I'm sure the new hardware had to take care of that too, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, there had to be hardware added to deal with it. There was the magnifier, which is basically just a switch that told us that the viewer had to be magnified.
Sure.
We'd do the math and magnify. That was no big
Right.
deal.
Yeah.
Then there was the new controller, which was basically similar to the Star Wars controller, except there was an additional set of switches that were not on the Star Wars controller. An additional, actually might have been two switches that were not on it. Two sets of switches that were not on it. And so we had to be able to use all that and take advantage of all that for the complex motion of both. There were three types of weaponry. There was armor-piercing shells, incendiary shells. There was machine gun that you could fire, as well as having a tow missile. And so we had to emulate all of that.
Did they actually get you access to a tank?
Well, actually, yes, but we weren't able to drive it around and ordnance and stuff.
Oh no!
That would have been fun, but no, I actually did get to sit in the gunner's position in the infantry fighting vehicle.
Wow. Well, that and it's a common question. People ask about the Bradley Trainer all the time, and I think
they do.
how many of those did you make?
There were two, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Two of them made. I believe I know an individual as one of them. I do not have any idea where the other one was or is to this day.
Right.
Okay, so
I know that there's pictures of a marquee that says Army Battlezone.
Yeah, that's what we called it back then.
Okay. And then somebody somehow has the bezel that says Bradley Trainer or something.
There may have been multiple versions. I mean, that was like toss off art.
Right. So, I kind of want to make one. Make a third one.
Well,
I mean, obviously,
you'd have to get the hardest part would be getting the controller. That would be the hardest part by far. If you did that, and if you got in touch with the guy who has the one, and you were able to duplicate the new boards and hardware on there with stuff that is long since obsolete.
Right. Well, we would probably do something with FPGA, and then
right. That would be the way to do it. If if you'd have to work backwards and make reliable schematics, which I'd be surprised if they existed.
Oh no. Yeah, there'd probably be some scanning.
Yeah.
I do want to tell you that a lot of our guests tonight in the chat are saying that they love Battlezone. So thanks for being involved with that. It's pretty cool.
Well, thanks. That's it's always a little bit heady when people say that. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Now I want to change the subject to something a little bit lighter, and I'm just going to say a word, and then I'd like you to expand upon it. And here it comes. The word is turtles.
Yes, turtles. That expands into a very long story.
Well, give us some of the aspects of it. How about that?
All right. So to get to the turtle part, the long and short of it was we were the coin up. The engineering guys in coin up decided, guys and gals in coin up decided that because the consumer group had this huge marketing division that would spend tons of money on videos and things like that promoting their stuff, we were going to put together our own video quote promoting unquote Atari games and stuff like that. And one of them was, and it was actually filmed during the programming of the Bradley Trainer. So
Okay.
they had rigged up this classic arcade game with golden sides and everything like that, and they got Ed Log to replace all the spaceship graphics, the saucer graphics and stuff with turtles floating
This is
around.
Asteroids?
This is Asteroids.
Okay.
And so we did a sort of like a Ralph car salesman sales pitch to try to sell this beautiful deluxe edition Turtleroids game
Turtleroids.
as part of this marketing coin-op marketing video. Of course, the thing was filmed like 2 a.m, and they had to find someone to read through the script to do this. And I was around because I was around all the time. Then. I was living at Atari, so here was a half asleep, sleep deprived individual doing this crazy rant, trying to sell like it's a used car, a video game.
Wow.
So that's a short story.
All right. So, but there was an executive that didn't like your idea of this Turtles game or something, right?
Really, I'm trying to. I don't recall that part of the story.
Okay.
I honestly don't.
That's all right. But I actually would love to come up with the ROMs for Turtleroids. So so if you could tell Ed.
Talk to Ed Log.
All right. Well,
he probably has the if I know Ed, he probably has the ROMs on floppy disk somewhere, as well as a paper listing of the code.
It'd be fantastic. Okay, so you got to put me in touch with Ed because I think it'd be great.
Well, I know that isn't how it ever works.
No, sorry.
People are always asking me when they get in touch with me, hey, can you get me in touch with so-and-so? And I will say, I will be happy to pass along your contact information.
That sounds great.
Let him know who you are, why you want it. Should add, and there are no promises.
Actually,
feel like he wants to get back in touch with you. If you want to send a little letter that might help convince him, I would do that. That's as far as I would.
Okay,
go.
that sounds good. That sounds good. I'm not trying. I didn't mean to overstep my boundaries.
No, you're not. I mean, it's
that's
just the
good.
way it is.
Yeah. So I mean, it would be great to talk to everybody at Atari at some point, especially I'm excited about some other people that I've reached out to. So and I will. And I'm hoping that we get them on the show. We want to have more women on the show too, because well, it's mostly
absolutely
mostly a guy thing. But there was some pretty influential women at Atari that we would love to have on the show, and I've reached out. So we'll see how that goes. And
Donna, I assume Donna's one of them.
Yeah, Donna's one of them.
Of course,
she's great.
Centipede, man. I mean, like that's such a good game, right? So,
yeah.
And there's some others that worked in not just in the home game division that I think deserve some recognition as well. So,
absolutely.
And make like there's just you guys know what it's like. It's kind of a sausage fest whenever we do this. It's fun. It's fun.
It is.
Don't get me wrong, but you go to these arcade conventions and it's a bunch of dudes and I love the dudes, but we're all about, at some point we're going to do a show about the women in our lives who put up with our collecting, which I think
Oh, my wife is fabulous, and I have to say my daughter-in-law is beyond spectacular. She has her own Addams Family pinball machine. She is a true games person.
That's
probably
fantastic.
far beyond me.
So maybe for the
that's awesome.
Maybe for the end of the show, we should ask you: do you have an arcade collection?
I do. I no longer have an arcade collection. I used to have about 5 games.
What were those 5?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember now. Let's see. I had a baseball game. I had a shoes game. I had a stun runner game for a while.
Oh, that's fun. Yep.
And I have my BattleZone game, and I had another game, and I'm for the life of me, it's slipping my mind. It was the first game that I got rid of.
Okay. Was it Gridley?
Right.
Because Gridley is a pain in the ass.
Gridley? Oh no.
No, it wasn't Gridley. It was not Gridley.
That game is hard as hell.
Nor was it a Sente box, which would have been cool.
Oh yeah.
I want one so bad.
So,
I'll open a bigger hole in my house to put it in here.
oh, yeah. So, real quick, were you heavily involved with Gridley's development?
Yeah, I mean, the game was we presented 3 games to Gottlieb and Game Concepts, and that was the one that they chose for us to implement. There were some basic flaws in it.
It's really
the big
difficult.
flaw I complain about is always having to split your eye level between high and low. It's bad enough when you have to do it left to right, but high and low is really hard.
If you guys want to try it out, it's at archive.org. Just look up Gridley, Gridlee, and it's stupid hard.
It's not a great game.
But it's kind of interesting. I think it's very interesting. I mean, it's always interesting for us to talk to people that were involved with, making these fantastic games. So, thanks for being on the show tonight. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's been enjoyable meeting and talking with you guys. So, very good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so we'd like to, round up with you a little bit after the show, just to say thanks. But I think, right now this is the time we're gonna, get into a little bit of shutting the show down. What do you think, buddy?
I think so. Let's talk about Phoenix Arcade's Darren Jacob is going to join us in 2 weeks to talk about his success in the arcade artwork business. So tune in on December 13th. To chat with the man with arguably the highest quality customer service and art in the business.
I'd agree with that. And also, are you tired of LCD panels messing up your Duck Hunt game?
Oh, man, I totally am.
I know I am. Jeff Keecher, the inventor of a project called Modern Mallard, will be on December 27th, 2 weeks after Darren, with guest host Brian McLeod Armitage as well.
Nice.
So that should be
that
fun.
Guy's smart.
He's smart.
I think he's a surgeon.
I think... By day, he's a surgeon. An orthopedic.
Yeah,
hey,
well,
by the way, Ed, he's an orthopedic surgeon. So if you want any advice, we got an in.
That's right. We got an arcade guy that does that. Well, thanks again for listening in on Double R. That's Arcade Radio.
Yeah, you can find it at Facebook/Arcade Radio or arcaderadio.com.
You call and leave comments and questions on the game line, even if you aren't Bob Zarzadek at 612-548-GAME.
And follow us on Facebook. Did I already say that? I think I did.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, follow us on Facebook and Twitter and and SoundCloud, right?
Oh, I have what he's saying. Or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's just one click. Actually, it's 2 clicks subscribe, and then you click the little notification bell and all that.
Actually, it's like 3 or 4 clicks. It's like
I
know. Okay,
please do.
That's gonna be it for the show. From Arcade Radio team, we hope that you had a great time. So, does that sound good? Did we do good?
All right. Good. Here's where that music where we walk out of the door comes on.
And sometimes I just kill it and do this, right?
Oh no.